Hey guys, so my name is Chris Keel. I'm the COO of Restore 7. We have an amazing guest today. I am talking with a guy named Ed Rush. So, one of the biggest questions we get is how to turn the prophetic into the practical. It's one thing to get a word from God, and it's totally another thing altogether to figure out what to do with that and see results from that word. As you know, at Restore 7, we want you all to see huge God results in all areas of your lives. We're so focused on the seven mountains. And a big part of that is economic, personal finance, and just all the things related to your business and to your financial health. So we're very excited about introducing you to a guest today named Ed Rush. He's a good friend of mine. He's a good friend of Johnny and Elizabeth and of Restore 7. He's also a Top Gun fighter pilot with a seven-figure financial advisor to some of the best businesses in the world. He's also one of the main guys we bring to speak at our events on the mountain of economy. So today you're going to learn how to create more kingdom wealth and to live more abundantly, Top Gun style. If you get a chance to work with Ed, do it. Check out this quick video, and then I'm going to bring Ed on.
Four-time #1 best-selling author and former F-18 Top Gun fighter pilot, business consultant and advisor Ed Rush has helped over 340 companies, including multinational, multi-million-dollar corporations, sports teams, Hollywood celebrities, and even one of the contestants on Donald Trump's Apprentice, grow their revenue, eliminate waste, and just have more fun in their business.
Yo, what's up, Chris, man? Thank you
for welcome.
Intro. I'm wearing my Top Gun in honor of the movie that just came out. I'm wearing my Because I Was Inverted Top Gun shirt.
Dude, I love it. I love it.
Those of you think my camera's turned upside down, it's not. I'm the one that's turned upside down. So,
well, so you mentioned Top Gun in the intro. Like, what'd you think of the new movie?
So first of all, most common question I've gotten this summer, it was so common. My friends, I had so many friends text me that I actually wrote the response I was giving like the first three people and just copied it, and started sending it to all my friends. So first of all, that little video I just showed you, I've seen that like 500 times. It reminds me, I really miss flying. I haven't gone flying for a little while, and it's like one of the passions of my life. I love being in the air.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant, that God gave, Orville and Wilbur, and maybe even Leonardo da Vinci, the mindset for being able to fly in the air. It's unbelievable what human beings can do when they're reflecting the true nature of God. Inventing is beautiful, and God is a creator, and humans are creators. And so I'm just sort of reflecting for a moment on God's goodness and allowing me to fly around in, $40 million airplanes. But I love the movie. The first movie was pretty epic. I probably saw it like 50 times. But the first movie was not very accurate to real life. In fact, not anywhere close. It was almost parodied in the fighter pilot community, even though we all watched it a lot, And like, even though a lot of us were there because of that movie, frankly. The second movie, however, I thought they did an excellent job with two things. First of all, the flying was really realistic. I mean, really realistic. And the reason it was so realistic is they were really in the airplane. In the first movie, they were in a sound studio, In the second movie, Tom Cruise, you got to give the guy credit. He went out of his way to train the actors to be able to fly in tactical aircraft. They weren't using the controls. They were sitting in the back seat with a camera pointed at them, and he showed them how to use the camera in the back seat. And so those scenes, most of the scenes, they were literally in the back seat of F-18s. And like the scene where the guy passed out, for real, he passed out. Like in real life, I guarantee you, he got knocked out from the G-forces. And so I thought the action was realistic. The story, the story wasn't as realistic to a true bombing mission as we would have. It was a little overdone, but I understand why for the purpose of the story they did that. The second thing I really appreciated about the movie was just from a story standpoint. I thought they did an excellent job telling a story. They did not go out of their way to push a social narrative or a politically correct narrative. Like, for example, one of the pilots in the movie, who is one of the excellent pilots that ended up in the bombing mission, was a woman. Now, I flew with female fighter pilots. They were great pilots, okay? And they inserted her into the movie in a very seamless way. They didn't go out of their way, to be like, women are the best. Like, that wasn't the point of the story. The story was a great story. But they got the point across that, women can be great fighter pilots too. And I thought, that's the way to tell a story. You don't need to tell us the narrative. Why don't you just tell us a great story and we'll infer on our own? So yeah, I really liked that. That was awesome.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I was watching something yesterday. I think it was on the new, I don't know how new they are, but the F-22s.
Yep.
And it was an evasive maneuver. That was this plane. It was incredible. It was doing like 360s and upside down and like launching all these. I guess they're for missile launch. Countermeasures, dude. It was amazing. But it like in the span of probably 200 yards, it was like flipping and turning, and it was just. The technology is amazing what they can do. I mean, you're talking about innovation. It's incredible. So you actually fought a real Russian MiG. What's the story there?
Yeah, so I fought a MiG-29. The maneuver that you were just talking about, that's one of the reasons that in the movie, I knew in the movie that they had used real pilots as their consultants. Because in one of the movies, part of the movie, one of the admirals said, "What's with that Cobra maneuver you did?" And only a pilot would say a Cobra maneuver. A Cobra maneuver, by the way, is when an airplane like pulls up and then pushes back over like that. It's a really aggressive maneuver. It takes a lot of skill on behalf of the pilot. You lose a lot of airspeed, but yeah, the Cobra maneuver was in effect in the movie twice. Actually, they had that 5th generation fighter in the movie that was executing these massive bat maneuvers, and I always tell people that's very realistic as to what an airplane like an F-22 or an F-35 or a MiG-31 or sorry, an Su-31 can do. So yeah, I got the chance to fight against a MiG-29, and all of our fighter pilot training when we do 1-against-1 dogfighting, the airplane that we're simulating that we're flying against is the MiG-29. That's because the MiG is the most proliferated of the 4th generation fighters, and so it might not be the most lethal, but there are the most number of them out there. So when we do our training, we're almost always pretending to be fighting against a MiG-29. Well, every pilot hopes they can fight a MiG-29, and most never do, mostly because MiG-29s are owned by our enemies, and we don't really go to war all that often against Russia. But I got to fly when I was a brand new pilot against the MiG-29, and the backstory is East Germany had a MiG-29 squadron that when East Germany just became Germany, kind of folded into, and Germany is one of our allies. So in a training evolution out in Nevada, I got to fight a 1-against-1 dogfight against the MiG-29. Now, to set this up, I was maybe 2 months into my time in my squadron. So I was young, dumb, and inexperienced. The pilot that I was flying against was the commanding officer of the MiG-29 squadron with over 20 years of tactical jet experience in and out of combat. I barely even knew how to fly the F-18, much less fly it against another airplane. He had flown against literally every plane in the world over and over and over again. And literally the only advantage I had that day is I was so dumb, I didn't know how dumb I was. Okay, so like sometimes you're just like you're so oblivious to the fact that you don't even know that you're supposed to lose. I should have lost. I should have gotten beaten really bad, but I didn't know that, and that became like my only advantage. Okay, and so the way that this dogfight works, the way that we do training missions, and this was a training mission with simulated missiles, is we start at about 3 miles, accelerate, and then turn in, and then the actual dogfight starts when 2 airplanes just pass each other. We typically pass at about 500 feet, close enough to see the whites of our eyes, and at about 1,000 miles of closure to give you an idea how fast we're going. And that's usually when the pilots will call fights on. That's when the actual fight starts. And what the MiG did is he pulled like 8-9 Gs directly into the vertical. And so I countered and pulled like 8 Gs directly into the vertical to give you a sense of what that feels like in the cockpit. Imagine 8 of you on top of you. That feeling is what you feel when you pull 8 Gs. You literally multiply your weight by 8 times. It's mass times weight. Or mass times gravity. And when you're pulling 8 Gs, your face is pulling down, blood's pulling into the bottom of your extremities. You feel like you're going to pass out, except you're too dumb to know that you're not going to pass out. And so as the MiG turn, I turn, I'm pulling with everything that I had, because literally I've got the dogfight of a lifetime in the next 20 seconds, And as we pull, we just pass each other, again, very neutral. So neither one of us was able to get a shot off. And so we passed each other. And right here, something extraordinary happens, which is the MiG-29 commanding officer goes immediately nose low. Now, I can't explain why exactly from physics and geometry, but if he was going to execute this maneuver properly, he would have waited about 2 seconds and then went nose low. And what he created for me was a window of opportunity. Now, that window was exactly a 2-second window. So I had exactly 2 seconds to be able to see his mistake, to be able to execute my maneuver inside of that time. And so there wasn't time to think, it wasn't time to, plan. There wasn't time to like break out the checklist and go through things. All there really was time for was a quick memory. And the memory in my head was of my instructor, the guy who taught me, how to fly the F-18. And my instructor said, Ed, my call sign was Head, when you see the MiG-29 going immediately nose low at a slow speed merge, what you do is you pull your nose up, pirouette to the right, and then take an aim 9 shot. That's what he said. So when you see that happen, pirouette, and you pull up your nose, pirouette to the right, which is full rudder, full aileron, literally a complete turn, like a cobra turn to the right. And so the MiG-29 goes nose low, and I have this window of opportunity that's about 2 seconds. My rule in life is when you have a window of opportunity that opens up, jump through it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just jump through it. And so, like, young, dumb, inexperienced, my backseater, who had a little bit of a stutter, was like, go get him, go. Like, he's yelling at me as he sees this happen. Pull my nose up, pirouette to the right, and next thing you know, I'm staring face down at the ground at a MiG-29 in my videotape.
Wow.
Now, that's a pretty cool spot, right?
Yeah.
So I took an aim 9 shot, came down, ended up taking a gunshot, and brought my airplane and my videotape back to my ready room. Now, 2 things happened that day. First of all, when I played the video for my whole squadron mates, I instantly became a hero. And I was not going to argue with them on that particular day. I needed all the accolade I could get, young, dumb, and inexperienced. I was happy to be a hero for a day. The second thing is I did not buy a single round for myself at the bar that night. That was a really fun night of free drinks. But the third thing, and I said too, is, I learned actually a really valuable lesson that day. And it was the value of 2 things. The first thing was just good training. Like, I had been trained by some of the best pilots in the world, man. People who had seen this over and over again and who had experienced it and had the wrinkle lines in their foreheads to be able to explain to me what to do. And the second thing is I learned, like, when you have a window of opportunity, you jump through it, And so now, I teach business owners and I teach people who love God how to make money and like how to change the world. But I always tell people, like, God's going to give you your window. God gives you these like beautiful windows of opportunity. And a lot of times, sometimes as believers, like, we just sit around and we're like, let me pray about it. And we're like, no, God's like, go, you already prayed about it. That's why I gave you the window. Like just go. Sometimes when the window opens, you got to just go. So there.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's awesome. What a cool story. I love that idea. I think too, just with, I don't know, one of the things that I've found is when you're starting something new, you might be a seasoned business guy, you're looking to either change industries or whatever it is. There's something amazing about having accountability in that place, and just having someone that you can just talk through the difficult times, like the startup spaces, all that kind of stuff, So it's, when you have that window and to provide some accountability and some support to that journey, I think is really, really important and really, really helpful. I know you do that with people as well. And so I just think that that's a great opportunity for people, honestly.
Yeah, it's a huge point. And you said it, I thought, very eloquently in the introduction, that one of the keys is taking the practical and turning it into the prophetic. And I love that because, I've known Johnny for years. Chris, I've known you at least 8 months because we did that event together last spring in Bend. And I know you guys are like really big on this. I know there's some folks out there who are really heavy on prophecy. And I know that that's a major component to R7. But like a huge component is now let's take this and put it into the real world so that we can see the change in the world. Like, there is a reason why our government is the way it is. There's a reason why our economy is the way it is. There's a reason why all of the big tech companies are led by people whose ideals we wouldn't agree with. And the reason why is because for years, decades, really good, well-meaning believers have been praying and asking God for breakthrough, and then he gives it to them and they don't take it, and God is a respecter of people's wills and their like actions and their desires. And it's heartbreaking to see how that happens. And so what you just said about accountability or even just mentorship is really important. You do need the training. The prophetic you need God's direction, no question about it. But at the same time, you need to be trained. So if God says, hey, you're going to be a speaker on stage, like I had a coaching member in about 2 weeks ago. Part of the coaching that I do is listening to God and adding practical, applicable strategy onto the back end. And what God was saying to her was that she was going to be a speaker in front of thousands of people. Well, what I did for the next 2 days is training. Here's how you get speaking deals. Here's how you build a talk. Here's how you here's how you tell stories. Here's how you use humor from the stage. Here's how you get people to take action. Well, the first part was God saying to me, and showing her, I said, I see this vision of you on stage in front of thousands of women. Now that we know that that's going to happen, let's talk about the tactical, practical strategies for making it happen, getting trained. And then I have a coaching call with her in like an hour and a half. Then there's the follow-up, which is like, how's it going? How's the accountability? And the church today, we're hungry for words from God, and that's a very healthy thing. What's not healthy is to hear from God, something amazing, and then go, okay, give me another word. Like the healthy response. And in fact, Johnny and I were talking about this just at your last event. The healthy response to hearing something from God is to go, okay, now how do I do it?
Yeah.
How you do it is you get trained, and then you get somebody to come alongside of you and kick you in the butt until you do it.
Yeah, it's true.
God opens doors, and you try, and you learn, and like the first time might not be perfect, and like, welcome to the real world, man. This is the way it works,
That's right. And what's obviously a huge thing that we're about at Restore 7 is figuring out how to influence the culture. And I think that we've been so afraid to get involved with the nitty gritty in many ways. And money is just a huge problem for people's mindsets, and I think there's a lot of guilt associated with it. Or if you focus on it, it's somehow a negative thing, but the reality is that money, organizations, businesses, these are massive influence movers and shakers in culture, and so you have no choice but to get involved with it, and so I think that I don't know, I love the way your mindset is, because I think that it can really help a lot of people overcome some of the historical religious spirit that I think is oftentimes associated with this thinking,
It's so smart. And the way you just said that is, I think, just spot on. So the church traditionally has had an issue with money. And that's because the church traditionally hasn't been taught how to think about money. And when I grew up, I was taught that money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
Because apparently the Bible said that money is the root of all evil. Well, then like when I chose to read it independently, I think it shows up in 1 Timothy 6. It actually says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Like I was literally taught when the enemy took Jesus up to the hill, he started quoting scripture, misusing it, misapplying it, and Jesus was like, don't put the Lord your God. He's like, take that back, man. I'm not going to let you. And so we were taught, supposedly out of the Bible, that money was the root of all evil. Well, the Bible also says that the blessing of the Lord makes one rich, and he adds no sorrow to it.
Yes, totally. I love that proverb.
Love it. And when you break that verse down, there's so much happening. Like, first of all, it reminds you of when Abraham, who was loaded, by the way,
yes.
It reminds you of Abraham, who was blessed to be a blessing. So God says the blessing of the Lord makes you rich. Wow, that means I can be blessed to be a blessing. But then he says he adds no sorrow to it. That word sorrow is the exact same word that shows up in Genesis 3 as translated as toil. Mm-hmm. And so when God says he adds no sorrow, what God's saying is, I'm going to reverse the curse even on this. So you should expect to be able to receive wealth or my abundance without all the struggle, without, Psalm 62. It's in there. It says, it's vain for you to go to bed late and wake up.
To wake up early.
Eating the bread of anxious toil. And like most people in business nowadays, eat the bread of anxious toil while the blessing of the Lord makes one rich. So my setting in business, certainly my setting with the people I work with, is to create a setting where they're in what I call easy and light, not toil, that creates essentially a attraction system to receive and keep God's blessings, right? Well, the other verse I love, also out of Proverbs, says, the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. It says, good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. Well, we're in the middle of a 5-year transitionary period, and Johnny has spoken quite a bit about this too. We're in the middle of a 5-year transitionary period where the wealth of the sinner is moving to the righteous. But this is so important as you're watching this, put everything down for a moment and just pay attention to what I'm going to say to you. If the sinner's wealth is moving to the righteous, the sinner's wealth will not get to the righteous if the righteous push it away. Mm-hmm. And part of my mission, part of what God's put me on planet Earth to do, having been a fighter pilot, having been in business, having made plenty of money, having lost a lot of money and kept a lot of money, everything in between, is to help train good people godly people how to attract and retain wealth. Now, when I do that, oftentimes people are like, well, what about like the spirit of Mammon, you know? And I'm like, well, remember, the blessing of the Lord makes you rich. So that's the opposite of that. That's literally the polar, that's like the photo negative of the spirit of Mammon. Second, and this is really important, because people's overreaction against money, that thing that I just said, we are in the world that we're in. So I always ask people, what would happen right now if the top 400, Forbes 400 billionaires in the world were all godly, good, heart-centered, you know, what it would change the world, man. It would change all these problems we're talking about. And so like, for example, the other day, and now I'm just on a roll, but we're having fun. So the other day I did an interview on Elijah streams, which, you know, like Johnny's on Elijah streams like every week, I think, actually. So I was on Elijah streams with Steve. I started talking about how I love to take my kids to Disney, right? So somebody in the chat said, I'm leaving the show. I can't believe, you know, Ed goes to Disney. I would never go to that organization. And I said, you know, I said, with full respect to the person who made that comment, I said, it's the wrong way of thinking. Here's the right way of thinking. The right way of thinking is what Elon Musk almost did with Twitter. The moment Elon Musk made that bid for Twitter, I have a prayer team. We meet every week for an hour. We're meeting today, this afternoon, for an hour. I was with my prayer team, and I said, you know what we should do? We should buy Disney. Because if you buy Disney, you get ABC, you get ESPN. Like, there's a lot of companies that you get when you buy Disney. And I said to the person, I said, look, that's the wrong way to think is not let's boycott Twitter, let's boycott YouTube, let's boycott Disney. The right mindset, kingdom-wise, is let's just buy it. Let's just buy it. Like, it's God's world anyway. Why can't we just all like for real? If we just all got together right now, I kid you not, I speak around the world, right? So I've done this Disney thing, and I've had hundreds of people come up and go, count me in on the Disney thing. So I started saying, when we buy it, I'm going to shut down Disneyland, and all the investors, all of us, literally like all thousands of us, we're going to have this big party right on Main Street, USA, big God party, now that we own Disney. So that was like a tangent, but it's about the point that I'm making, which is when we acquire what is rightfully God's, okay? So this is not like 1 Timothy 6 says, do not whoever desires worldly wealth, you know, will fall into great sorrow and tribulation. That's a very loose paraphrase. But the point is, we're not trying to acquire worldly wealth. We're trying to receive God's blessings. That's right. When we do that, man, we will change the world.
And, you know, absolutely. And I think it's, you know, I love that verse in Deuteronomy where it talks about, I've given you wealth to establish my covenant upon the earth. The whole idea of wealth is to establish God's ways and his covenant and to, you know, further the kingdom in that capacity. But the reality is that you need money to do many of those things, you know?
So that verse, I'm switch the camera. That verse is like so important to me that I put it on my license plate.
Nice. Oh yeah, Deuteronomy, there it is.
So I put it on my license plate on my, it's right above my head.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I put it on my license plate. Actually, you know what's great, Chris? This actually is directly applicable to what we're talking about. So we might as well go down this road.
Yeah, let's
So I had a collector's edition Corvette for 3 years. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to put Deuteronomy 8:18. So I had people like, honk, you know, I love that verse. Like, come by when I was driving. So, all right. So Deuteronomy 8:18 says, you will remember the Lord your God, for it is he who has given you the power to get wealth, as it was with your fathers, as it is this day.
Yes.
And I always use this verse to describe. Remember, I said, like, you got to get connected to God, hear his word, hear his purpose through prophetic. The second thing you need to do is get trained, and the third thing you need to do is take action, right? Mm-hmm. So those are the three. So I always use this verse actually to describe those three, because in Deuteronomy 8:18 it says he's given you the power to get wealth. So I always teach two scenarios. Scenario number one is like my kids, talk about Disney. My kids will come to me and go, hey, Dad, it's been a while since we went to Disney. Can we go to Disney? Now, that request, I have a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 4-year-old, and I do know what causes that. And yeah, it's the same wife. Like, people always ask me those questions. So if they came to me and said, can we go to Disneyland? That is a request that is within my power to give or to not give. So for example, if I'm like, hey, we're really busy this month, you know, grandma's coming to visit, whatever, maybe next month, it's within my power to say yes or no. Because I'm the dad, I hold the purse strings, you know, and like drive the car. So now, what if my two boys who live in the same room together, what if my two boys came to me and said, Dad, oh, wonderful dad. Oh, glorious dad who provides. I'm like, what do you want?
Yeah, right.
And they say, Dad, we just desire something with all of our heart. And I said, what is it? Like, what do you want? And they're like, this is burning inside of us, oh Father. Tell me what you want. And they say, we just want our room, Dad, to be clean. Well, I would say, go clean your room, because all the supplies have been given to them.
Right.
All of the resources have been given to them, and it's within their power to get a clean room. When it comes to wealth, God has given you the power to get wealth. What that means is that his resources are at your disposal. His supplies are at your disposal. I have a phrase that I use in my business all the time. And the phrase goes, if it's his will, it's his bill. It's his will, it's his will. If God wants me to go, if God wants that woman to go speak to thousands of people, will surely he will provide the connections, resources, and influence to be able to make that happen. If it's his will, it's his bill. Because because you have the supplies and the resources, then it's your job to go clean your room, or in this instance, to go collect the wealth that's coming to you. And man, when I teach people that, it blows their mind, because a lot of times people sit around and ask God for some supernatural blessing. And by the way, I've received supernatural blessings.
Yes.
So I'm not saying that doesn't happen. What I'm saying is that's not the normal way of doing things. That's why you call it supernatural, right? The normal way of God doing things actually is better. And I know this sounds crazy. It's better than the supernatural, because in the supernatural, God gives you something supernatural. That's wonderful. But in the natural, when you create something, especially in the business world, what you're creating is something that makes the world a better place. It betters the life of the person who receives it. They pay you. When you get paid, you receive something in return. They receive something. They're thrilled with what they received. You're thrilled with what they received. And actually, two people are now blessed by this situation, where in one case with the supernatural, only one person's blessed. And so it's unbelievable when you think about the fact that God created business to be creative, to be restorative, to be innovative, to be able to create wonderful things. Like, we don't have this without innovation, without God's innovation. We don't have Zoom. We don't have StreamYard, our websites. God has given you this unbelievable ability to create value. And that's why I love, even more than the supernatural, I know it sounds crazy to say that, I love God's natural way of creating wealth, because it creates such blessing for all the people who are involved. And that's the reason why I love working with business owners, entrepreneurs, authors, speakers, coaches, people who just want to see the world change because they share a message. So I know we're coming up a little bit on our time, but like that if you just took that and just wrote down Deuteronomy 8:18, spent the week just praying through and meditating on that verse, and then just saying, okay, God, if it's your will, it's your bill, allow him to deliver the resources and the training and the tools that you need. They're out there, by the way. They are out there. There's more people out there now. Like 20 years ago, Chris, there were not people like Johnny teaching this stuff in the world. There was a huge gap. There was a massive gap. The church was not teaching this. They just weren't. Okay. 20 years ago, there were not people like me teaching out there. It's one of the reasons I'm so thrilled to have this very unique message. Well, look, you got the resources out there, man. Like you got the resources out there. And instead of complaining about the government or complaining about Twitter, go buy them. Go take over Washington, for crying out loud. That's at least our plan.
Yeah, that's great, man. I love that. I'm thinking about this thing that Bill Johnson was talking about, actually related to this guy. Was like a painter. He was telling the story of this dude. The guy painted for like 20, 25 years or something like that. And him and his wife were just praying about this. She had this like skin problem and she couldn't use lotions or something. God dropped like basically a chemical compound, like string in her mind. She didn't know anything about this, started doing research, realized what it was, and it was absolutely the solution that she needed. They ended up building like a $500 million business off of this like idea that God, but I mean, it totally changed the lives of all these people that could not use lotions because they had this specific allergy. So it's amazing how God does combine helping others and wealth,
I'll tell you a story that's directly connected to you. And by the way, I haven't told you this story or Johnny, because I've been wanting to connect you to. So I got a new private client this summer who was he's an inventor, and he's created something. He and his team have created something. They've already got over 11 patents. It will completely and totally transform the energy industry forever. And there's no way that you will go another year without hearing about their invention. It's that extraordinary. He was telling the story about how he was sitting next to the UCLA football stadium, which, by the way, Johnny had made a specific prophetic word about the name of that stadium. And he was saying he was sitting there when they got their breakthrough for this new invention. Now, this new invention will probably save the average household 50% or more on energy costs. It's at least $1 billion invention, probably more like about $20 billion. And those guys have been trained, and they were engineers, and like they knew the world that they were in. But God brought their breakthrough while they were sitting next to that stadium, and it was something that they had heard Johnny say like a year before about this one like angel in that particular area.
Wow.
And my point though is first of all, there's like a lot of stories that are out there about people's breakthrough that you don't even know. It is really hard sometimes when like you read the news and you just feel like you're getting overwhelmed with waves of like discouragement and negativity. But you got to know like there's kingdom people out there who have their minds and hearts set on changing the world. By the way, it's one of the reasons I always recommend that you go to events like that event I came to and spoke at, that Restore 7 event. You just show up in a room like that, you feel more positive because they're just good people, like a lot of energy.
That's right. I think energetically, you're just connected to people being in the same space, dude, and the spirit is there and all just it's amazing. There's something really important about not forsaking getting together in groups.
Oh, yeah.
It
says that someplace in like Hebrews 10.
Yeah.
Hebrews 10:25.
That's
yes,
right.
Do not forsake the assembling. And by the way, that's not just Sunday. So sometimes you get your butt to a business event. That's
right.
It
does, there's absolutely, I think I love the stories like the one that you're sharing, the one that Bill Johnson was sharing. I also love the stories about the people that are just disciplined and they just, they just show up and they do the hard work. And I think that as the body, we need to be reminded of that. I mean, I feel like in our message, people are so hungry for the prophetic, but they're not hungry to do the work. They're like, it's like, they just want the quick word from God, but they don't want to get out there and do the hard work. And so I would just encourage everyone, that it does take just the discipline of going through the motions, of showing up, of being available, of putting the time in, but to not do that with anxiety. I mean, like to not sacrifice your family on that altar, to do all the things that we kind of see 70, 90-hour work weeks by people that just totally destroy their lives because of this obsession. I think that there's the balance is finding the diligence of God without the anxiety and the toil that the world kind of associates this kind of living with.
So I wanted to tell you, by the way, Chris, as a side point, I put this beautiful rack right here back in my background just for you because I know you got
nice, dude. I was looking. I got my big elk trip.
He's just so you know, he's got this big hunting trip, and I don't know if you ever tell anybody about that publicly, but I thought I was looking through. We have a giveaway pile like over here that my wife. I thought, no, Mama, hold on a second. I'm gonna put that in the studio.
That's awesome. I was gonna say I didn't see it the last time. I think I
put it there for you. Yeah, I got my helmet. I flew that flag in Iraq. There's my shofar, a copy of my book, another copy of my book. Really like my books.
Yeah, I'm with you. But that's awesome, man. Well, if someone wants to connect with you, or did you want to say anything more, or should we talk?
No. I think that's really a good place to sort of wrap. I mean, here's the thing. We can go a lot deeper in this topic. Shoot, I have 2-day events that go fully immersed into this. My whole framework is hear from God, recode and rewire your mindset, get trained, go execute. So what I teach essentially is that what I made available, and Chris, I'm not totally sure when this is going to go out. So I'll just say, I know it's on my calendar for a couple of weeks from now, but as you're watching this show, it could be a day or 2 or 3 days from now. I have a Zoom training that I do that teaches you fundamentally what I just said, which is how to hear from God, literally how to ask God questions about your business, about your innovations, about your ideas, about your future, about money, get answers, then recode your mind for success, then take that and turn it into some training that turns into results. And literally, I've done this with thousands. In fact, at this point, probably tens of thousands of people. Some crazy success stories, some of the ones that I even mentioned today. But what I would love to do is just invite you to a training. This is an interactive Zoom training, so this isn't like pre-recorded or anything like that. It's you and I and a small group of people getting trained on this methodology. It's totally free. The website is below me. It's edrushzoom.com. Now, I know this video will be out there and you may be watching this like a year later. If there is, just so you know, I do about, one of these every 2 to 3 weeks. So if you get to the page and it says the date was last, sign up anyway. You'll at the very least get the recording and then we'll send you an invite to the next one. So that's an opportunity just to.
That's great. So who would you say is a good fit for this? Is this like people trying to start a business? Is this seasoned business owners? Like who's this for? Yeah,
I mean, my teaching is generally geared towards people in business or with an eye towards business. What I always tell people is if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, this is the spot for you. But I know a lot of people are thinking about it. I know a lot of people who, they're like one of the women that I'm just emailing with this morning who came to my last event. She's a school teacher in the LA school district area, but she wants to speak and she wants to write a book, and she's got a real big heart for the prophetic. And she wants to start to share her message. She, by the way, knows Johnny. If I mentioned her name, you would know her really well. Well, she's in the school system, so she's not in the business, but man, she's about to be an entrepreneur. Like about a year from now, she will be full up in it. So a lot of people that I work with, I call reinventors. You're in a business or the corporate world, or you're working for a company that you don't love, or you're in the school system, or maybe you're a parent or a grandparent and you're moving out. By the way, one of the biggest and most fastest growing demographics in my following and in the business world are people over 65. So maybe you like retired, but you want to get back into it. So if you got a heart for business, you got a heart for kingdom, or you just want to be able to make more money and keep more money, that's the person who's ideal for this.
That's great. I would encourage everyone to go check that out. I think if you're thinking about this at all, I've found that one of the best things to do, even for people that are just getting started, is just get around people talking about these ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's going to just start causing kind of like a wildfire in your mind. And so I would encourage everyone who has an interest in this, check it out. edrushzoom.com. Go there, check it out, sign up for the course. And we love Ed at Restore 7. And we would encourage all of our audience to check that out.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you, man.
All right, man. See ya.
See you guys.